Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to be talking about something that, let's be honest, every small business owner and entrepreneur should at least consider to some degree, and that's what happens when they want to leave their business. And so we're going to have a great conversation today with Michelle Seiler Tucker. So welcome to our program, Michelle.
Thank you for having me, Deb. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll just jump into this.
Sure.
As a 20-year veteran in mergers and acquisitions, Michelle Seiler Tucker has sold hundreds of businesses. Recognized as the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, we're going to talk about that a little bit, and growing businesses, Michelle sees opportunity where many are discouraged or have given up. Her passion is to save businesses that might otherwise close. She closes nearly 98% of all written offers and on average obtains 20 to 40% above the asking price for her clients. So again, Michelle, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, I always like to get in the Wayback Machine. Tell us how it is that you got to where you are today and how you discovered that this is your passion in life.
So I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always was interested in business, and I've owned many, many, many different types of businesses. But I did end up getting stuck in corporate America, working for Xerox. And I'd only been working for Xerox for about 6 months. And they nicknamed me the closer because every time a salesperson couldn't close a business, they would bring me in and I would close the deal. Yep. Every time I would close the deal. So my manager came to me after I'd been there for 6 years and 6 months. And she said, Michelle, I think you should interview for the regional management position overseeing the South. Ooh. And overseeing 95 salespeople, 95 to 100 salespeople. And she says, you'll never get it, but you should interview for the experience. And I'm like, why would I interview for something I'm never going to get? Sounds like a colossal waste of time. And she says, no, it's not a waste of time because you're going to learn so much during the process and you will want to advance, up the Xerox ladder. So this is a great stepping stone for you. It's a great training ground. So I said, okay. So I went ahead and threw my name in the hat and was interviewing with several other Xerox sales reps that had been there for years and years and years and years. And I had only been there for 6 months. And it was a really grueling process. It was 3 months of demonstrating high volume printers. It was doing presentations in front of executives. It was interviewing them. It was asking them questions. And it was them asking us questions, asking me questions. And it was a whole panel of people that were interviewing us. And anyway, at the end of 3 months, I ended up getting it.
Oh.
And it was funny because I got it. Nobody thought I would. And all my friends at Xerox were now mad at me because I beat them and I'd only been there 6 months. And so then I started, I became a manager and was overseeing these, 95 sales reps. And I stopped doing what I love. What I love is working with people. I love clients. I love helping solve their problems. I love coming up with solutions. And I wasn't doing that anymore. In corporate America, you have a meeting to schedule a meeting to actually have a meeting.
Right. And then you have another meeting to follow up on that meeting.
And then you have another meeting to follow up. But yeah, so it was just a constant, cycle of meetings. And, I'm like, how long do I want to do this? I really miss entrepreneurship. I miss being in sales, but I didn't want to go backwards at Xerox, So anyway, I started looking for a franchise to buy. And I stumbled across this company that had 2 locations. My husband actually knew them. And so I met with them and said, look, I want to buy a franchise. I'm going to keep my job at Xerox, making 6 figures with great benefits,
Mhm.
and just have somebody operate it.
Mhm.
And I said, no, Michelle, we know of you. We know of your reputation. We know you're the closer.
Mhm.
We actually want you to become a partner with us.
Oh.
And then if you partner with us, we'll give you a franchise.
Mhm.
So I said, listen, I appreciate the opportunity,
Mhm.
but I'm not comfortable leaving a 6-figure position with great benefits for a company that has 2 franchises. You're not successful.
Mhm.
And I said, we know we're not successful. We need you. So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do it for 6 months. We'll see how it goes.
Mhm.
And I said, but I'm going to keep my job.
Mhm.
So I'll fly to places on the weekends, work evenings and weekends, and keep my day job. And I did that. So I flew to Georgia, I flew to Atlanta. So
Mhm.
many franchises in Atlanta. Went to Atlanta, Texas, Arizona, Mississippi, Louisiana was pretty much the territories that I focused on. And I made more money in those 6 months than I did an entire year at Xerox.
Ooh, that's nice.
So I went ahead and put my notice in with
Mhm.
Xerox
Mhm.
and left. And I was actually a partner with this company.
Mhm.
And then they did what most business owners do. They focus on market, grow,
Mhm.
but they never build a solid foundation
Right.
to handle the growth.
Mhm.
So they started to crash and burn, and they were over promising and under delivering. And I did just the opposite.
Mhm.
I under promise and over deliver. And these franchisees are my friends. I was in their
Right.
weddings. I
Mhm.
would go to their weddings. I would go to the hospital when they had their babies. I would stay at their house
Mhm.
when I went into town.
Mhm.
Well, it got to become a very volatile relationship between the
Right.
franchisor and the
Mhm.
franchisee. And now I'm stuck in the middle.
Mhm.
And I kept taking up for the franchisee, and they're like, "You're our partner. You need to take up for us."
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"No,
We're the
no.
boss.
Yeah, we're the boss. You got to take up for us." I said, "No, I'm taking up for the client because we sold them a bill of goods and we need to deliver, period."
Right.
And so it was a constant battle. And I said, "Look, obviously we don't see eye to eye. Obviously our values are not aligned.
Mhm.
Obviously I have ethics and you have none. So
There went the friendship.
yeah. So I said, you need to buy me out."
Mhm.
So anyway, so I ended up, they didn't want to buy me out. So of
Mhm.
course I had to get legal involved. But anyway, they ended up buying me out,
Mhm.
and I transitioned into selling businesses
Mhm.
because I was selling franchises. So I thought, well, what's an easy
Right.
transition?
Mhm.
Selling businesses. It can't be that much
Mhm.
harder.
Right.
Wrong. Selling businesses is a lot more difficult than
Mhm.
selling franchises. There's a lot more moving parts.
Mhm.
So anyway, I transitioned to selling small businesses at first, and I transitioned into selling large companies. Typically, our purchase price
Mhm.
is $10 million and up.
Mhm.
And then I really transitioned into fixing them and growing them
Mhm.
and helping my business owners, my clients, with a build to sell program.
Mm.
Because I learned very quickly, as Steve Forbes says, 8 out of 10 businesses will not sell for a
Right.
multitude of reasons.
Mhm.
So if I don't fix them
Mhm.
and grow them, I can't sell them.
Right. Right.
So that's why I specialize in buying, fixing, growing, selling. I do buy businesses and flip them. I also partner with other business owners and invest my money, my time, energy, effort, expertise, core competencies, and help them build their business so it's actually sellable.
Right. I love it.
That's my background.
I love it. I love it. And it's interesting because we'll talk about pre-pandemic and during pandemic and maybe
Sure.
post-pandemic because a lot of businesses, I mean, things changed, but you've written a great new book. Hold it up, you have to be Vanna. It's called Exit Rich, the 6P method to sell your business for huge profit. And as we record this, you have to pre-order it. It's actually not out until January of 2021. But I read a pre-copy last night, and it's the thing that really struck me is, of course, your core principle of when you start a business, be planning how you're going to exit that business. And so when I was reading it, what I was thinking is, even if you don't plan to sell for whatever reason, it's just every principle that you talk about in the book is the way you should be doing business.
Right.
And that was really the thing that struck me about it was, you don't have to be reading it thinking, oh, okay, on X date, or when I reach X age or whatever, I'm going to sell my business. I mean, it's just good core business philosophy, because of course the entire concept is that when you have a good, sound business that has been that way for many years, you will sell at a really good price. And so that was I enjoyed the book because it was something where I was thinking, well, people should be doing this all the time. Of course, the problem is they're not, which
Right.
is why you have to go in and fix things. So what are some of the big things that you see people making mistakes doing?
Yeah, so there's a lot of mistakes. And the first mistake is business owners don't plan their exit. That's
Right.
number one.
Hmm.
And the business landscape has changed dramatically,
Hmm.
even before COVID. When I wrote my first book, Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth in 2013, I did the research and learned very quickly that 85 to 95% of startups would go out of business.
Right.
So 1 to 5 years, you're at risk for going out of business.
Mhm.
That's common knowledge, right?
Right.
However, when I wrote Exit Rich in 2019 and did the same research, I learned that the business landscape had changed dramatically. In fact, it changed so much I didn't believe the research.
Mhm.
I had my team go back and check it
Right.
over and over and over and over again. And I still have my team check it
Mhm.
because it's just so unbelievable to me. So even before COVID, the landscape has changed. So now it's only 30% of startups will go out of business.
Mhm.
Only 30%. So those startups, those individuals, those entrepreneurs are like, I want to start a business. I used to say,
Mhm.
no, don't start a business. Now I'm like, okay, start a business,
Mhm.
because 30% will go out of business. However, out of 27.6 million companies,
Mhm.
business owners that have been in business 10 years or longer, 70% of those business owners are at risk for going out of business.
Mm.
70%.
That's a big number.
That's a huge number because there's only 30.2 million businesses in the United States, 30.2 million. And now those 30.2 million, they employ over half the US
Right.
workforce. Small business is the backbone of our economy. If you lose small business, we lose jobs.
Right.
We lose jobs, we lose spending power, and it's a trickle down effect.
Mhm.
People can't afford to go out to eat, so restaurants close.
Right.
People can't afford to shop, so businesses close, so retail closes.
Mhm.
Discretional spending is done.
Mhm.
Okay. So small business is huge. So if you think about it, 27.6 million businesses, 70% of those are going out of business. That is very scary. Now
Right.
you hear about the public stores all the time, the public businesses like
Mhm.
Toys R Us went out of
Right.
business, Kmart, Steinmart, Pier One
Mhm.
went out of business. GNC is closing down 900 locations.
Mhm.
Even Starbucks is in trouble.
Mhm.
But what you're not hearing about are the private companies
Right.
on
A
every
little
street
mom and
corner.
pop type of
Yeah,
places.
not even
Mhm.
little mom and pop. I mean, you might have a $10 million company
Right.
that's doing grossing $10 million in revenue and they're going out of business. So it's not all just mom and pop, but
Right.
it's private companies. So these private companies on every street corner
Mhm.
in every town in every state across our great nation are dropping like flies.
Right.
And the problem is most of these business owners are faced with having to sell for pennies on a dollar, close their business down, or even worse, file bankruptcy.
Right.
And the problem with bankruptcy is when you file a bankruptcy, most business owners don't just lose business assets, they lose their personal assets
Right.
too.
Right.
Because
Because
most
they didn't
business
set things
owners,
up right.
they set things up right, they do. But here's the mistake they make.
Mm.
They take out a personal guarantee
Yep.
or
Mhm.
they mortgage their home.
Right. They do a home HELOC or something.
Correct. They take a
Right.
mortgage out against their
Mhm.
home to
Mhm.
support their business.
Especially if
So you
things got tight. They started
Yeah.
using their personal credit cards, all of those various things.
And you just pierce the corporate veil.
Mhm.
So when you do that, they can go after your personal assets
Right.
and they don't care.
Yeah.
So that's a big mistake, not planning your exit
Mhm.
and piercing that corporate veil. The other reason that business owners are going out of business, well, the main mistake is that business owners become complacent.
Mhm.
They stop innovating. I call it AIM. Always innovate and market. Always innovate and market. They stop innovating and they stop marketing. And let me tell you something. If you've been in business 10, 15, 20, 25 years, you can't do business the way you've always done it.
Right.
Because
A little upstart's going to get you.
the consumer buying habits have changed. And you can thank Amazon for that.
Right.
Consumers do not buy products and services the same way they used to buy products and services. And Amazon is the main reason that we have changed our buying habits. But online technology has changed our buying habits. But Amazon's made it very easy to practically order anything and have it shipped to your house on Prime in 2 days.
I just ordered Christmas presents today.
Exactly. Now, that's before COVID. After COVID, COVID also changed our buying habits.
Right.
Because yes, you would order stuff online, but you would still go to the grocery store. You would still go to the meat market.
Right.
You would still go
out
to
eat.
the farmer's market. You would still do all that stuff, right? Go out to eat. However, now you don't even have to go to the grocery store.
Right.
Because Amazon bought Whole Foods and Whole Foods will deliver groceries to you. Walmart is doing the same thing now. So they're delivering groceries to you too. So if you are in business and you don't look at your clients and ask your clients, what do you need? What do you want? How can I make it easier for you to do business with our company? Then you're going to end up going out of business. You have to innovate. And that's what business owners are not doing, is innovating. And whoever makes it easiest for the consumer to do business,
because we're lazy,
is a company that's going to win. I don't know if it's so much that we're lazy. I think that people are
busy.
now,
Maybe busy's
they're busy, but they also, I'm like, you know what? I would rather go to the park with my kids than go grocery shopping.
Yes.
You know, instead of going to the mall and buying a wedding gift for an upcoming wedding that I have, I would rather take my daughter horseback riding. You know, so we would rather enjoy experiences. Kind of, and the millennials are that way too. Millennials are all about the experience. So business owners really have to innovate. They, you know, they have to adapt. So that's those are some of the biggest mistakes that business owners make. But the other big one that I talk about in Exit Rich is that businesses don't operate on all 6 cylinders. They don't operate on all 6 Ps.
Right. So tell us what those 6 Ps are.
I will. I'm going to go a little bit into depth on each P so that the audience understands them. So the first P and the most important P is people. You don't build a business, you build people, and people build the business. So people is number 1. And you got to have the right people in the right seat. A lot of times business owners have the right people, but they don't have them in the right position.
Right.
So the right people in the right seat. Then you have to ask yourself, who in my business opens the door? Who in my business deals with sales and marketing and customer acquisition cost? Who in my business deals with manufacturing? Who in my business deals with distribution? Who in my business deals with logistics? Who in my business deals with customer service issues? Who deals with accounting? Who deals with the environmental issues? Who deals with tax issues? Who deals with trademark infringement? Who? The secret, the clue is never put you next to the who.
Right.
Because you want your business to operate. You want your business to operate without you.
Right.
And the problem with most entrepreneurs is their name is next to all of the who's.
Right.
And entrepreneurs are wearing all these different hats and they're stuck working in the business and not on the business. Okay. So never put your name next to the who. You got to have the right people in the right seats. And then you also got to have a management team in place because you want to create a business that works for you rather than you working for it. And a lot of business owners, and I don't want to insult anybody, but a lot of business owners have created a job in which they go to every day versus a business that works for them, they're working for it. So you really should have a management team in place too, because buyers do not want to buy a job. Buyers want to buy a business that works for them.
Right.
The second P, which we've already kind of talked about a little bit, which is very important, and this is why many businesses are going out of business, is because of this P right here, product. So ask yourself, is your product thriving or dying? Is it on the way up or is it on the way out? Do you have an Amazon on your hands or do you have a Blockbuster?
Right.
And if you have a blockbuster, you better get ready to pivot.
Mhm.
You know, you need to align yourself with a mentor, an advisor,
Mhm.
somebody who can help you
Mhm.
see things differently. Because when you're stuck, when you're in your fog, it's foggy. And sometimes it's hard to see things that are right in front of you. And
Right.
I always tell business owners, ask yourself this question. What business are you in?
Mhm.
What are you really, really good at?
Mhm.
What business should you be in?
Mm. Mhm.
Okay. That is a transformational question
Mhm.
because business owners get stuck in a transactional
Mhm.
and they stop being transformational.
Right. Right.
So I'll give you a couple of examples of this. Amazon ask themselves, what business are we in? What business did Amazon used to be in? What business did they start in? Do you
Originally,
remember?
it was selling books.
Exactly. It
Mhm.
was selling books. So they asked themselves, what business are we in? We sell books.
Mhm.
What are we really, really, really good at? They
Customer
said, we're
service,
fulfillment.
fulfillment. That's yeah.
They
Mhm.
said, we're great at fulfillment. What business should we be in?
Mhm.
Oh, we shouldn't just be
Right.
selling books.
Anything that we can do fulfillment.
We should sell anything that we can fulfill.
Mhm.
And those three questions
Mhm.
is what transformed Amazon to the multi-billion-dollar conglomerate that it is today. I'll give you
Right.
another example. Have you ever watched the movie The Founder?
No, I haven't.
Okay, great movie for all of your audience members to watch. It's
Mhm.
based upon the McDonald's story.
Oh yes, the Croc story. Mhm.
The Kroc, well, McDonald's brothers who started
Right. Mhm.
McDonald's, and
Mhm.
then the Kroc story, Ray Kroc, who came in and blew up
I know.
McDonald's.
We always forget
So
that Croc was not the founder.
correct.
Mhm.
Everybody thinks that Kroc was the founder. He was
Mhm.
not the founder.
Yeah.
So here he is in the bank,
Mhm.
and he had pierced his corporate veil. He took a loan out against his home
Mhm.
for the franchise, and he wasn't making any money because the franchisees were not compliant and they weren't paying the royalties. So he was trying to borrow more money, and the banker said, I can't lend you any more money. You're already overextended. So he walks out of the bank. This gentleman that was sitting in a cubicle next to him follows him outside and says, Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like eavesdrop, but I
Mhm.
heard your whole conversation. He says, and I think I can help you. He said, but I have a question for you. What business are you in? And Ray Kroc says, I'm in the restaurant business.
Mhm.
He said, no, that's not the business you're in. What business are you in? He goes, I'm in the restaurant
Right.
business.
I make burgers.
He's like, I don't have time for this. You know, I need money.
Mhm.
And the gentleman said, what business should you be in? And Ray looked at him. He goes, I have no idea.
Mhm.
He goes, you should be in the real estate business.
Mm.
You need to be buying up the ground. You need to be building the buildings.
Mhm.
You need to be leasing them. You own it as a separate corporation. You lease it to the franchisees. When the franchisees are not compliant, then you get rid of their contract and you bring another franchisee in.
Right.
That one question alone is what changed Ray Kroc and McDonald's world forever.
Mhm.
That one question.
Mhm.
So McDonald's now, because of that, is the largest real estate holding company in the world.
Right.
McDonald's is not in the fast food business. They're in the real estate
Mhm.
business. So that's what everybody should be asking themselves. Everybody, even if you have a successful business,
Mhm.
what business are we in? What are we really good at? What business should we be in? That's product.
Right.
Because you have to pivot, especially
Mhm.
with coronavirus now.
Oh.
You know, there are
Mhm.
industries that were thriving that are now dying. There were industries that were dying that are now thriving. So you have to ask these transformational questions and pivot. The third P, and this is a P that is always overlooked and never really thought of until something bad in the business happens, like a
Mhm.
catastrophic event
Mhm.
happens.
Mhm.
That's processes.
Mm.
The owners never really think about what should our process be
Right. So
until
people know how we get from A to B to C to ship.
exactly.
Mhm.
But they never really think about it until a customer complains
Mhm.
or until maybe they have an injury that occurs
Mhm.
because there weren't safety processes put in place.
Mhm.
So it's typically a unfortunate occurrence that happens to make the owner think about processes. But processes are one of the most important things in your company, and it can make or break a business.
Right.
So processes should always be designed with the customer experience in mind.
Mhm.
Let me give you one more example. So the same movie, The Founder, I know you're going to watch this movie later.
I know. I know.
But that not Ray Kroc now. This is the actual McDonald brothers. So
Mhm.
when they started the company, I want to say it was in the 40s,
Mhm.
50s. And back then, it was always the drive-in restaurant,
Right.
like a Sonic,
Mhm.
And the problem with that back then is the order was always wrong, the food was always cold,
Mhm.
and it took forever.
Right.
So McDonald's, when they started McDonald's, the McDonald brothers, they said, let's this is our objective. This is our mission statement. We're going to create quality food that tastes great in 2 minutes or less.
Mhm. Mhm.
So then when they designed their process, they said, we want to design our process with the customer experience in mind. What do we want the customer to get? Great quality food, 2 minutes or less.
Mhm.
So then they went out to an empty tennis court.
I remember seeing pictures, and they laid it
Yeah.
out. How
Right.
it would do. Mhm.
Right. They took all their employees,
Mhm.
they laid it out,
Mhm.
and they kept changing it because it
Right.
wasn't right. And
Mhm.
they spent all day there,
Mhm.
and they designed who takes the order, who toasts the buns,
Mhm.
who cooks the burgers,
Mhm.
who puts the pickles, was it 3 pickles on the bun,
Right.
who
Mhm.
packages it, who gives it to the client,
Mhm.
making sure it's done 2 minutes or less.
Mhm.
They designed their processes with the customer experience in
Mhm.
mind
Right.
to make sure the customers got good quality tasting food 2 minutes or less. Business owners don't do that,
Yeah.
Deb.
Mhm.
They don't do that. And let me tell you something, you're going to have a lot less customer service issues if you design the
Right.
process with the customer experience in mind.
Right.
And your processes should be productive, effective,
Mhm.
efficient,
Mhm.
and most importantly, and here's where a lot of businesses mess up, is they need to be documented.
Right. Oh, yes.
You need
Yeah.
policy and procedure manuals. You need SOP checklists,
Mhm.
standard procedure checklists, and you need to make sure all your employees are trained
Right.
on such.
Right. Well, and one of the tricky things is that it's not that process is not Michelle's job, part A, B, whatever it is, because that's what ends up happening with many companies is you've got an employee that, she has done the widget for, she's done that same little thing forever and ever. But nobody knows how she does it. She just does it. So then she goes on vacation, she gets sick, she quits, and your process comes to a screeching halt.
Right.
And so and of course that's it's tricky when you're dealing with your employees because some of them they're very protective of their jobs, which they should be, so they don't
Right.
want you to know how it is that they do every single little detail, but you still need to do that. I worked for a while doing crisis management planning for companies, and one of the things we said was processes were the big things,
Yep.
because that really is one of the first things that you have to deal with, especially if, say, you have to relocate. How can you replicate that business? And and so it wasn't that X person did this, it was what was this that was being done.
Right.
And when we would find a situation where it was so person specific, we knew we had a problem. And many times that might be a department of one that, maybe it was something had to pass through legal and you only had one attorney. Okay, well, that attorney better have a backup, or as you said, have things written down so that somebody else can step in. So process really is very important. And we that's all of these are very important. But yeah, processes, that really is something that I think so many people forget.
They do. And like I said, they don't think about it until a catastrophe happens. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, we need a process for this.
Yeah, I mean, we would ask people, okay, if Bob were all of a sudden not able to come to work, what would happen?
Yeah.
And most of the time people went, we didn't know because we're not even quite sure what Bob does. And that was the really wrong answer. But yeah, I mean, there were so many times where people just didn't realize that what it was that was being done and what was so critical. And sometimes it really was that if X didn't get done maybe by a certain day every month, like a report filed, the company would stop. The whole company would stop. But yeah, I mean, it's when your processes, say you have somebody complaining about customer service, back to McDonald's, the hamburgers were cold. Okay, where in that process were the burgers getting cold? Maybe it was at the final thing where somebody handed the bag out to somebody and it had sat there for 5 minutes. That's the problem.
Yeah. And that's why, and then, then you're going to have a poor customer experience. And back in the 40s, nobody put it on the internet.
Right. I know, but
But
now it's like
nowadays,
Facebook, Instagram.
everybody, yeah. And you gotta, and I can't stress this enough, that you have to design your process with the customer experience in mind. I'm
Right.
gonna give you one more example. So there's a small little studio,
Mhm.
and I don't want to say too much in here in New Orleans.
Mhm.
And my daughter attends the classes.
Mhm.
And their process is when a hurricane hits or something
Mhm.
happens, they send out an email and go put on their private Facebook group.
Ah.
Well, here's a problem with that process. When you have busy entrepreneurs that have children
Mhm.
and they're not stay-at-home parents, they might not be checking email. I
Right.
get over 500 emails a day.
Mhm.
My husband doesn't always check his email. And I promise you, I never go check your private Facebook group.
Right. Mhm.
So I suggested, why don't you tweak that process and send out a text group to all the parents?
Mhm.
And the response was, well, this is our process. This is how we do
This
things.
is the way we've always
That's
done it.
that's not in the plans this year.
Mhm.
And I said, oh, well, she goes, they said, oh, it's not an option. And I said, oh, but it's an option to inconvenience your customers. Because
Right.
what happened was my nanny missed a math tutoring to
Mm.
get her to that class.
Mhm.
When that class got canceled at 4:00 in the afternoon for a 5:30 class.
Mhm.
And oh, by the way, you're supposed to go check the Facebook group
Mhm.
or in your email.
Right.
So I said, so it's an option to inconvenience your
Mhm.
clients. And I said, look, I got an IT guy that could do this for you. And she goes, we are way too big for that. I said, schools do it. And they have
Right.
thousands upon thousands of
Universities do
students.
it.
Universities do it. She goes, where do I? She goes, and I said, look, I have an IT guy that could do it for you in a matter of minutes. I'll offer his service and I'll pay for it. You know what she said?
We're still too busy.
It's not that we don't know how to do it. We just are not going to this year.
Ah. Mhm.
I said, oh, well, maybe I'm not going to continue my child.
Yeah, I'm going to find somebody else.
So your processes are so inconsiderate and designed to piss off the client.
Right.
Not ensure client satisfaction, but to aggravate your client. So, and then people wonder why they go out of business. So
Right.
processes are huge. And you did make a very good point. There are a lot of companies have one person, like I own a graphics company. We have one person doing collections.
Mhm.
And if we lose that one person, we're in big trouble, right?
Mhm.
So what we're doing is we have an integrator that's going around to each department and making sure that that one person writes down in a PP manual everything they do, and that integrator goes back and make sure it sounds good, make sure it's languaged correctly,
Right.
and everything else. But you gotta have those PPs, those policy and procedure manuals and SOPs, even if you have one
Right.
person, because that one person could leave, and then you're in big trouble.
Right. Well, and or all of a sudden everybody has to work from home.
All of a sudden, everybody has to work from home, and you have no policies and procedure manual.
And when you can't just walk out and touch somebody on the shoulder and say, "Tell me what you're doing today," that's the or yeah. I mean, and I think that probably has been a big problem for many companies is things just got done.
Right.
And they don't know how they got done, and now that they can't see everybody, they're having to figure out how in the heck did things get done.
Right, exactly. So processes. So number 4, P, is proprietary. And proprietary is the highest value driver, meaning that you'll get a higher value, a higher multiple if you have proprietary. So there's 6 pillars to proprietary. Number 1 is branding. The more well-branded your business are, the more money you're going to get for your company, as long as your brand is still relevant in the mind of the consumer. Toys R Us brand is not worth as much as it used to be.
Right, because people are like, I'm going to order online.
Right. So the most valuable brand in the world is, what do you think?
Coca-Cola. I'm in Atlanta.
I thought it was Coca-Cola too, but it's not. Coca-Cola brand is worth about $89 billion. And that's without assets, cash flow, EBITDA, real estate, or inventory, anything. No, it's Apple.
Apple. Okay.
Apple
I'd
brand
say
is
Nike's probably pretty up there.
Apple is worth over $389 billion.
Wow.
And that's without
Mhm.
anything. That's without
Right. You see
cash
that
flow,
Apple, the
inventory.
logo, and you
Right.
know that's
Right.
Apple. Mhm.
Yep. So Apple's number one. So build your brand and you'll build your exit and you'll be able to exit rich.
Mhm.
Number two, a big mistake that business owners make is
Mhm.
when they start their business, they don't get a federal trademark. They get a local trademark on their company.
Mhm.
Years will go by and all of a sudden, boom, you're hit with a cease and desist letter.
Right.
And guess what? You might have had that company for 15 years.
Mhm.
This other company just got a federal trademark a
Mhm.
year ago, sends you a cease and desist letter, and most business owners are going to try to fight it. They're going to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars and they're going to lose.
Right.
And then they're going to have to change the name of their business,
Right.
which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So go out there and spend the $1,500 and get a federal trademark.
Right. Yeah. I recently did that with the name of this program.
Yeah.
And exact same thing. I had a local trademark in the state where we're incorporated. And and because I thought, who's going to care?
Right.
And I did get a cease and desist that didn't
Yep.
pertain in any way. I mean, I didn't even, I spent 5 minutes on Google and figured out how to tell this guy go away. But that did make me think, because and so I spent the money, and it was not inexpensive, but it was far worth it.
What was it, 1,500,
It
1,700?
was somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of that was simply because I could not do it myself. I mean, I started the process and then I got the letter back from the trademark people and went, oh, I don't know how to do this. And so, we did that. But what I realized during this process was, if someone else trademarked the name and then they came after me, I would have to go back through all 600 programs and remove all references to the Business Power Hour.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it would have just been, no, we're just not going to do this.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Right.
It's not worth it. And everybody should do that. Like even before you go get a domain name, you really should check to make sure the federal trademark is available.
Yeah.
And then you should also trademark, like, not just companies, but podcasts. Like I have Exit Rich podcast. I have Exit Rich book.
Yeah.
I did
Anything
get
that has value.
Yeah, I am getting a federal trademark on Exit Rich. I also got a federal trademark on the Seiler Tucker, the ST GPS exit model, and how you should exit your business, and also the ST 6Ps. So anything that has value, go spend the money and get it trademarked. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you might not be able to use it.
Right.
And then, so that's very important. Also, patents are a huge value drivers. We once sold a company for $18 million that had 18 patents. So if you have something unique, I mean, you hear about Shark Tank, right? Every time the investor asks the same question: do you have a patent on this? Do you have a patent on this? Do you have a patent on this? So go get a patent.
Right.
The other valuable thing in IP are contracts. Contracts are huge. So vendor contracts, manufacturing contracts, distributor contracts, exclusive contracts. The most valuable of all contracts are client contracts. If you have client agreements or MSAs, master service agreements, those are really, really, really valuable. And buyers will pay more money for that because they know that this business is sustainable because it has recurring revenue coming in.
And those contracts transfer when the business is sold. Because
bingo.
Yeah.
You're still in my thunder. Because the number one mistake that business owners make is that they do not have that transferability language. 99.9% of all business owners do not have it. And 99.9% of all sales are asset sales, not stock sales. So if you don't have the two sentences in there, then your deal could stop dead in its tracks and not close. So go and get that 2-sentence transferability clause and stick it in your contracts. We're selling a $70 million company right now. They have 150 contracts. Only 2 of them are transferable. Why only 2? Because I gave them the language and they started inserting it.
And so it's the most recent 2.
Correct. It's the most recent 2. So you got to make sure they're transferable. And then the other valuable thing in IP are databases. And these are typically overlooked and undervalued.
Mhm.
If you have a database that's really large and it's pretty active
Mhm.
and it can be repurposed or retargeted,
Mhm.
then it's worth a lot of money.
Mhm.
Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp, and
Mhm.
WhatsApp was hemorrhaging money. Not just not making a profit,
Mhm.
hemorrhaging.
Mhm.
But WhatsApp had 1 billion users, and Facebook knew they could ROI. They
Mhm.
knew they could monetize those billion users. So databases are very, very, very profitable, and they're a huge value driver.
Right.
The other big thing is I call it business real estate, not commercial buildings or land, but
Mhm.
this is called business real estate.
Mhm.
So let's say that you have a skincare line
Mhm.
and you have celebrity endorsements.
Mhm.
Like let's say Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or the Kid Craddock Show or let's say Oprah Winfrey. She
Mhm.
has it in her 100 things, her 100 favorite things,
Mhm.
or her most favorite things. You cannot pay for that. That
Mhm.
is like huge, huge, huge real estate.
Mhm.
And they can only endorse one skincare company.
Mhm.
So that's really valuable. So
Mhm.
any type of synergistic buyer is
Mhm.
going to be willing to pay a lot of money for that.
Right.
And then let's say that let's say that you make pillows
Mhm.
and you're number one on Wayfair.
Mhm.
That's prime real estate that you
Right.
cannot pay for.
Mhm.
Same thing with Amazon. Let's say that you have a unique vacuum and it's a
Mhm.
robotic vacuum
Right. And
and
it
you
comes
got
up
patent.
first in every search. Mhm.
Correct. And you pretty much have cornered Amazon. That's huge real estate. So these are all value drivers
Mhm.
that will get companies, because business owners like, Michelle, how do I get a 10x?
Mhm.
That's how you get a 10x, by creating that
Mhm.
kind of IP and that kind of proprietary stuff, like your agreements and your
Right.
patents and all that. Then the fifth P is patrons,
Mhm.
and this is customer
Right.
base. And you really need customer diversification, not
Mhm.
customer concentration. So look at, does your business follow the golden rule where 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients?
Mhm.
If it does, you're in big trouble, because if 80% of your revenue comes from a few clients and you lose one or two clients, you could be practically out of
Right.
business. So you
Mhm.
always want to make sure you have customer diversification. Also, you need to ask your clients, what do you need? What do you want? How can I make it easier for you to do business with me? Because clients' shopping patterns have changed.
Mhm.
Their wants, their needs have changed.
Mhm.
Whoever makes it easiest for them to do business with is the one that's going to win their business.
Mhm.
And then if you're a business that's been in business for 20, 30, 40 years, your customers might be aging out.
Right. Yeah. Are you
So
replacing them?
you
Mhm.
got to replace them. And guess what? Millennials don't care about what baby boomers care about.
Mhm.
So the way millennials buy things are not the same way that baby boomers buy things. So you really got to constantly be reinventing yourself and asking these customer service questions and conducting these customer service surveys. So you really get a better handle on what the consumer wants.
Mhm.
So you can provide it to them. And then the last P, the sixth P, last
Mhm.
but not least, probably one of the most important as well, is profit.
Mhm.
So profit's huge, right? And
Mhm.
so everybody always asks me, Michelle, why do you say profit last? Here's why I say profit last. If you don't do all those other things, you're
Right.
not going to have
You're not going to have
profit.
the sixth
No,
P. Yeah. There's no profit if
you're not going to
I
have
mean,
the 6P.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's funny because people think, well, duh, and I have to have customers, I have to have product, but they don't think about them in the right way.
They don't. And I always say profits are never the problem, because clients come to me and say, Michelle, I'm not making any money. I don't know what the problem is.
Mhm.
Well, there's your first problem right there, thinking profits are the problem.
Right.
Profits are not the problem.
Yeah.
Profits are the
Somewhere there's something
symptom.
broken. Mhm.
Right. They're a symptom of
Mhm.
not having the right employees in the right seat, or you being all the who's,
Mhm.
or not having the right product. Your product is failing, not dying, not thriving, or not having the right processes in place. I mean, processes, if they're not efficient and productive, they can cause you to lose money. If they're not designed with the customer experience in mind, like that studio I was telling you about with my daughter, you're
Mhm.
gonna lose clients, which
Right.
means you're gonna lose money.
Mhm.
And if you haven't protected your IP, then you're going to be spending money, and then maybe having to spend even more money if you have to change your company name.
Right.
So, and if your clients are not diversified And if you have customer concentration, you're going to lose profits. So profits is never the problem. It's always a symptom of not operating on one of the 5 Ps.
I love it. And as I said at the start, these are all in your book, but, and obviously with the goal of eventually selling your business, but we should be doing these all the time.
We should be doing these all the time. And just let's talk a little bit about the STGPS exit model, because we didn't talk about that. Buyers, and you said this at the beginning of your show, business owners should always plan their exit from day one of starting or buying a business.
Right.
They never do that. And I always think it's puzzling to me, because do you have children?
No.
Okay. So I have a daughter, and I know other parents. We plan out their entire life.
Right.
We plan where they're going to go to elementary school.
Oh, yes.
Where they're going to go preschool, elementary school, middle grade school, high school, college.
And then every tiny detail in between.
Yes. And then we like to plan who they're going to marry. We like to plan how many grandkids they're going to give us.
How many grandkids.
So we'll plan out our children's lives, but we won't plan for our most valuable asset, which is our business.
Right.
And so what business owners need to do from day one of starting or buying a business, they need to follow the GPS exit. And the GPS exit, the Seiler Tucker GPS exit, and it's basically this. Start your business with your end game in mind. Determine what you want to sell your business for. If you say, I want to sell my business for $10 million. All right, I want to sell my business for $10 million. That's my destination. A GPS, you always need to know destination.
How are you going to get there?
Right. So you plug in your destination. The GPS knows where you're starting from. It knows your current location. So with the GPS exit model to exit your business, know your destination, $10 million, know where you're starting from, what your current valuation is. Now, most people will get a health checkup once a year. They'll get their car checked up once a year. They never get their business checkup.
Right.
They never know what their business is worth. You have to know where you're starting from. So if you want to sell for 10 million, and let's say you're at 3 million, then you need to determine time frame. So let's say your time frame is in 5 years. You're at 3 million, you want to sell for 10 million in 5 years. Now you need to determine who your buyers are going to be. There's 5 different types of buyers. So let's say that you have a healthcare staffing business. And you want to sell for $10 million. Well, you can rule out first-time buyers, because most first-time buyers are not going to afford a $10 million.
That's way too complicated.
Correct. But a private equity group, a PEG, could afford it, and PEGs based on platforms or add-ons. So if they're gonna get into the healthcare space, staffing, and they're not in it now, you better have a $3 million in EBITDA. So you don't need to just know who your buyers are, but you need to know what your buyer's criteria is. So there's private equity groups, and there's strategics and competitors. Okay. So strategics and competitors, if they're already in that space, or if they have similar, let's say they have medical transcriptionists, but they really want to get into medical staffing. Well, then they're probably willing to maybe outbid other buyers for that particular business. But you need to know, what's their gross revenues requirement? What's their cost of goods sold requirement? What's their EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization requirement? You need to know all of those details. So first-time buyers, private equity buyers, strategic/competitors. Then you have sophisticated serial entrepreneurs. They'll buy you. But again, you need to know what their buying criteria is. And then last type of buyers, turnaround specialists. They're not going to buy you. If you're a $10 million company, your EBITDA is probably around $2 million. They're not going to buy you.
Right.
So know who your buyers are, know what their buying criteria is, what synergies they're willing to pay more for. Then, most importantly, know your why. Because nobody does anything without a powerful why.
Right.
And if it was easy to sell a $10 million company, everybody would be doing it. So it's not. And you're going to have all kinds of catastrophic events occur. You're going to have different financial storms that occur. So in order to keep your financial boat afloat, you better have a powerful why. And that's the STGPS exit model to get you from point A to point B.
Right. And again, even if you don't plan to sell your business, you should have all of this in mind. You start your business. What is your goal to be worth in 5 years, in 10 years, because that would be what it would also sell for. So, if you want to be a 6-figure company, how are you going to get there? And all of those various things, because that really is, there are obviously lots of businesses. Like, I would be a good example. My business is me. Nobody's going to want to buy it because the product, the service is me.
You don't have people.
So. Right. Yeah. And so, but I still should have those goals. I should be doing all of those things, and all along. And it's funny because with people, I always think about, it doesn't have to be an employee.
Nope.
It's the other things. Like, I have a producer for this program. I have an attorney. I have a CPA. I have all of those various things, that we have, because we shouldn't be, as you said, we shouldn't be wearing those hats ourselves. What is my product? That has been one of the most fascinating things, I think, with the pandemic, is watching the companies that pivot, that used to do this and then do that. Restaurants, I think, would probably be one of the biggest examples of that. Is, people can't go into your restaurant any longer, or they're at least limited. I don't think anybody is back to 100% in the United States. I don't think you can, it could be that in like Wyoming, you can have, you can be back up to 100% capacity. But yeah, in most restaurants, you are very limited. So did you pivot to do takeout, to do delivery? There's a restaurant here by us that's a Mexican restaurant, and they built drive-through. They built a big drive-through thing. Now, clearly, it's much more, I'm assuming, I haven't been through it. I'm assuming it is a much more limited menu than what they offer inside, because it's one of those restaurants that has, a 20-page menu, and you can't do that in a drive-through. I mean, you couldn't do that. But they put in a drive-through, and there's a line. Every time I go by, there is a line. And
I will tell you, we have a Popeyes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
On the way home every day. And I'm telling you, the line is out to the street, in the street, and they're going to cause a wreck.
Right. Well, and, down here, of course, one of the biggest things to see is how Chick-fil-A is doing it.
Oh, they're
I've been to Chick-fil-A's where there are 5 lines in the drive-through, and man, they just whiz you through there. Plus, you can drive all the way around and do curbside pickup. They figured that out quickly.
They did in our processes. They probably had to tweak their processes too.
Right. Yeah, and of course, the key was that they had it down pretty good to start with.
Right.
So then it was, how do we expand it?
Right.
And so there's those, but yeah, it's just, these are just things that you need to be doing no matter what. And so that was like I said, that was what I loved about reading your book. But the other very important thing that you talk about in the book, and in the other things that you do, is the fact that we might actually, we might have started our business with the goal that at some point we're going to sell it. Never ever, or almost never ever, try and do this yourself. There's just so many moving pieces and things like that. And that's one of the things that you talk about in your book, is you should work with a company like yours. There's questions in your book, here are the things you go through to ask these folks, because they can't just say, oh, I want to do this today. They need to be experts in it. But, that's where it's definitely going to pay off too. So tell us a little bit more about what it is exactly that you do for businesses.
Sure. So I'm not your typical M&A advisor. I'm a mergers and acquisitions master intermediary, a senior business analyst, and a bunch of other stuff. But I'm not your typical M&A.
You have more letters after your than I do.
So yeah, I'm not your typical M&A advisor, because first of all, I own companies, and in any given time, I own 5 to 10 businesses that I build to sell. Mm-hmm. So I'm not your typical advisor. Mm-hmm. I really get to know my clients, and I really get to figure out, and help them figure out what their seller sanity check is. Right. Is this the best time for them to sell? Is this not the best time for them to sell? What money do they need? Because it's not about what I sell your business for. It's about what you walk away with, and will it afford your lifestyle? Mm-hmm. So I help them determine how much money do they need, and for how long. So, do they need $500,000 a year? So what do they need monthly? What do they need annually? And then I kind of narrow it down to find out, what are your priorities? Like, What's most important to you? Is it the money? Is it somebody that takes care of your employees? Is it somebody that's taking care of your clients? Is it somebody that carries your legacy, and grows your legacy beyond what you grew it?
Mhm.
What's the most important thing to you?
Mhm.
And then I help them plan their beginning.
Mhm.
Because if I don't help clients plan their beginning,
Right.
their next, they'll
Mhm.
never exit. They'll find a way to self-sabotage
Mhm.
and they'll kill the deal every time. So I really go through this process with them. And in some cases, I'll tell a client, your business is not sellable. I mean, I did that with a graphics company. They called me, the owner called me, really, really wonderful, wonderful man, had about a 20-minute conversation with him. And he said, Michelle, I just can't do this anymore. It's me, my wife, and we have one employee.
Mhm.
We're working out of a garage.
Mhm.
And, my wife and I are about to kill each other. We're probably going to get a divorce. We're working 14 hours a day.
Beep.
And he goes, I don't have the business acumen to grow this company to the next level.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? The business is not sellable. If I took
Right.
it out of the business,
Mhm.
then there is no business. So then he says to me, but I love the business and we're turning down 6,000 clients a year that we can't get to.
Mhm.
And I went ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
6,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a process that's wrong
Yeah.
here.
Well, you have a people problem because they had no
Right.
people.
Obviously didn't have.
Obviously, you had a process problem. They had a great product. They had a process problem. So I said, look, we're not going to sell your business. If you would have got any other broker, you'd be in big trouble because they would have put your business on the market and it would have never sold. And they told the one employee that they were selling or closing their door. So that one employee wouldn't have got another job.
Right. Because she thought she
So,
was going to lose her job. Mhm.
yeah. And so anyway, I said, he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, let me do my due diligence on you, but we're going to partner.
Right.
And so I put up money. I took them out of the garage, put them in a 6,000 square foot space,
Mhm.
hired employees, hired a COO,
Mhm.
leased new vehicles, new equipment. Now they have a business, not a job, and now they're doing millions.
Right.
And our exit plan is to sell, for 15 to 20 million.
Right.
So that's what I do differently than anybody else. I'm an entrepreneur. I know what it's like to run a business. I know what it's like to have to pay the bills. I know what it's like to build a company to run on all 6 cylinders. I've been there, done it.
Mhm.
And I think that's what makes me so unique, more so than anybody else.
Right. Right. Yeah, because with brokers, and I'll be honest, I've interviewed several on the program, it is a transaction for them.
Yeah.
They're that middleman who matches the buyer and the seller.
Yeah.
And and that's what they do. Now clearly they want a good business because they want to sell it for because if it's not sellable, they're not going to make anything. But
they don't know how to fix it. They don't know
Right.
how to grow it. They don't
Right.
know about the 6 Ps.
Mhm.
They don't know any of that
Right.
stuff. And, my clients look at me as not only their M&A advisor, their intermediary, but as their problem solver on everything. I had a client call me the other day whose business we're selling in the 50 to 60 million range. And she said, Michelle, she calls me at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. She goes, I got a problem. One of my employees tested and they're all staying in the house together. And one of them tested positive. What do I do? I'm going to put a mask on and take him to urgent care. I said, no, you're not. Call 911 and have the ambulance pick him up.
Yeah.
Where do I get the test? Where do I get tests? I said, I got a resource and I sent her my resource. So I'm really more of their problem solver than I am just their intermediary. I think that's the big difference.
And that's obviously why then the businesses sell for more. Because you fix the problems. I mean, somebody else might go in and go, okay, well, we can sell this business for 5 million. It sells for 5 million. When you fix the problems, it sells for 20 million.
And the other reason we're able to sell for 20 to 40% more on average is because we also have the largest data buyer base.
Right.
Buyer database.
You've got one of those databases.
Yeah, we have like over 28,000 buyers. And so we know how to create a bidding war, and we know what buyers are going to pay what for synergies. Right. So we know how to put a value on those synergies. And we know how to bring those certain buyers to the table to create a bidding war. So a lot of times without even fixing the business, we can get our clients more because we're selling those patents or because we're selling that BP contract that other buyer wants. We find the synergies in that business that other buyers are willing to pay top dollar for.
Right. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Michelle, we are at the top of the hour and we didn't even talk about the one thing that I really, really wanted to talk about was there's this pandemic going on, and is it a good or a bad time to be doing all of this?
Well, you can have me back on.
Yeah, I was
but,
going to say, that just means we need to do this again.
Can we tell people how to get our book?
Most definitely. So
Okay,
tell people about the book and then how
Sure.
they find you if they want to work with you.
Sure. So go to exitrichbook.com, exitrichbook.com for $24.79, $24.79. You can purchase a book, which includes shipping. If you buy it on Amazon or Hudson or Books A Million or anywhere else, it's more expensive plus shipping. So at exitrichbook.com for $24.79, includes shipping. You get the immediate download today. You don't have to wait till the book comes out in January. You get the book today. Plus, you get a lifetime membership to the Exit Rich Book Club, where I do training videos and I go into depth about all these different techniques and strategies. Plus, most importantly, Deb, I have digital downloads. So if you've never seen an LOI, sample letter of intent before, I have one, or a purchase agreement, or due diligence checklist, or closing docs. All of the downloads you need to sell a business are there. Plus, you get a 30-day membership into Club CEOs, where we do masterminds and Q&As and a hot seats to ask those transformational questions like, what business are you in? What business should you be in? And then when the book comes out in January, we ship it to your doorstep.
Perfect. I love it.
So
I love it.
exitrichbook.com. And then they can also go to seilertucker.com, seilertucker.com, and they can call my office, 504-525-1717. I'm right here in New Orleans, but we do business all over.
It. Well, and it's Seiler Tucker, and I'm going to spell that. It's SeilerTucker.com. There's an extra E in there at the start that we need to make sure people have. So, this really has been fabulous. And like I said, we have to have you on again because we really didn't talk about, the pandemic and, maybe by the time we get you scheduled again, we'll be coming out of that. So will it be good? We'll have, probably a different president, and so what's, all of those changes in 2021, I think it's just fascinating to be talking about all this because it is going to affect so many things. So I definitely look forward to having you on again. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
No, I think, the big thing is it's hard to read the label from the inside of a bottle. You really need an outsider's perspective to read the warning signs and keep you out of the danger zone. And, when you're in a fog, it's foggy. So call me, I love help. My passion, my mission is to help save the economy by saving one business owner at a time.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a delightful conversation with Michelle Seiler Tucker. We will have you on again. But until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.